The cold crept first, as it always did, an invisible breath threading through the cracks of Castle Black to coil around Jon Snow's ankles, while he stood atop the wall and watched the false dawn. The sky to the east smoldered with embers of bruised violet and drowsy red, the last colors a man might see before the White Walkers drained him bone-pale. Yet Ghost sat at his heel, white fur flashing pink beneath the newborn light, ears pricked forward as though he heard something carried on the wind beyond the known world. Jon let his gauntleted fingers rest on the rough ice crenellation. It was an old habit, this silent communion with the wall, a wordless vow renewed each morning. Stand. Hold, remember. But the words rang hollow now. The free folk were through, the watch broken as surely as the wall's ancient oaths, and somewhere in that wide dark lay Mance Rayder in chains, and thousands more survivors, women and babes among them, huddling beneath Stannis Baratheon's banners because winter offered nothing kinder. He closed his eyes and breathed. Frost edged the hairs inside his nostrils, a pinching needle prick that kept the mind sharp. Down in the yard below, brothers of the Night's Watch lifted torches to light the morning's practice, the hiss and crackle rising faintly. Jon should have felt pride, or duty, or simply the peace of a task well tended. Instead, he tasted a metal tang at the back of his throat, a warning, like the smell of blood before a blade was drawn. Sam will be awake soon, he thought, and Aemon with him. They would meet, as they always met, just after dawn in the old tower library. Jon, Sam, Maester Aemon, sometimes Bowen Marsh, sometimes Gren or Dolorous Edd. They would speak of who remained alive and who did not, of casks of oats too shallow and lamp oil too low. They would tally losses as men once tallied coin. But today, Aemon had asked Jon to come alone. Ghost shifted, a silent command. Jon followed the direwolf's gaze toward the horizon. The colors were lightening by the heartbeat, and with them came a shape. A raven black against a rising sea of pale rose. It cut the still air, dipped, and vanished somewhere among the crumbled towers, where Maester Aemon kept his rookery. Another letter, Jon supposed. Most ravens now bore Stannis' sigil, a fiery heart within a stag, summoning the Watch's Lord Commander to council in the king's name. But Jon had yet to be elected commander officially. The choosing could not be risked while the Watch still bled from a score of wounds. Stannis' letters, though, arrived all the same, mounting like drifted snow against the door of the Lord Commander's chambers. Jon refused to enter. A crunch of boots behind him broke the hush. Jon turned. It was Elizar Thorne, hood of black wool shadowing his eyes, mouth wrenched in its familiar sneer. Admiring the sunrise, Lord Snow? Thorne spat the honorific like spoiled wine. Half the night's stores didn't arrive from Eastwatch, and the king's men demand we double their rations. But do enjoy the view. Jon could have answered with steel edge, but the words curdled before they left him. He looked past Thorne toward the lift, already descending empty to fetch wood and water. I'll speak with the quartermaster, Jon said. We'll stretch what we have. We'll starve, Thorne answered. Stannis Red Queen prattles of burning guts and beacons. Our brothers bend knee like green squires at a tourney. Only fools obey orders at sword point. Remember that, bastard. Now. Thorne stalked away, cloak snapping in the dawn breeze. Jon exhaled, feeling the walls chill shift inside him like an old friend. It would be another day of shortages and quarrels. Yet something Aemon had whispered the night before lingered. We are pieces on a board whose game has changed. Winter asks different questions now than it did in my youth. A single raven was circling above the rookery, cawing once for each revolution. Jon took it as summons and started down the stairs carved inside the ice. Ghost trailed, noiseless. The library smelled of parchment dust and boiling pitch, for the iron braziers had scorched the flagstones black this deep in winter. Sam sat hunched near one, quill poised above parchment. His eyes brightened when Jon entered. Across the table, Maester Aemon's clouded gaze lifted toward the sound of boots. Lord Snow, Sam said, voice gentled by relief. Maester Aemon has news. Important news. Jon shed his cloak, and knelt beside the maester's stool. "A raven came?" Aemon rasped, and Jon realized the old man was trembling, not from cold, but urgency. "From Dragonstone. From the king. Stannis again." Jon straightened. "He seeks more men. Or food. We have naught to give." "Not Stannis," Aemon whispered. His milky eyes, sightless, seemed to fix upon Jon all the same. It was addressed in his hand, yes, but the words belonged to another. One who stood at Rhaegar's side when Dragonstone last held a prince. Aemon extended a curled parchment. Wax cracked as Jon unrolled it. He read silently. "My Lord Snow, you know me only through Maester Aemon's recollection. I was Sir Barristan Selmy's squire at Storm's End, and served Prince Rhaegar Targaryen until the day he fell upon the trident. Kings die, but blood remembers. I have placed before King Stannis proofs of your birth lingering in Dragonstone's sealed chambers, proofs sealed by Lord Eddard Stark, whom even his enemies named honorable. Whatever name you have borne, another lies trembling beneath the ice. Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, heir to the Iron Throne. The realm bleeds, good men burn. With your leave, I shall ride to the wall at once. Ser Torren Manderley." Jon read it twice. The words blurred, then sharpened like a whetstone's scraping. Proofs. Blood. Aegon Targaryen. He felt the shape of himself shift, as though his bones had been melted and reforged without consent. "This is some jest," Jon murmured. "Lord Eddard Stark never spoke." "He swore an oath to your mother," Aemon finished. "So he told me once, though he named no names. My mind is old, but I recall that sorrow in his voice. He spoke of a promise that would break kingdoms if he broke it first." "Ben-Navsa." Jon's hands clenched the parchment. Ghost prowled near Sam, ears flattened. "I am the Lord Commander of nothing," Jon said. "A bastard sworn to celibacy. What am I to do with talk of thrones and dragons?" "Dragons hatch from stone when the time is dire enough," Aemon whispered. "Perhaps the wall will crack before the world mends. Blood calls blood, Jon. It may be you who must answer, not the girl across the sea." Jon thought of Daenerys Targaryen, the dragon princess's brothers sometimes mocked in tavern tales. She had hatched monsters from funeral pyres, they said. She was forging an army in Slaver's Bay. But Essos lay farther away than the ends of the earth to a man who had spent his life at the wall. Jon tasted a bitterness sharp as sour wine. If he were Rhaegar's son, what then? Would the realm await 2 dragons, or choose the first to appear? Sam cleared his throat. "There is more." He produced another parchment, unsealed. "From White Harbor, Dardawain. Lord Wyman Manderley requests leave to visit the wall under banners of peace. He hints at a secret Stannis men must not learn." Mandawander. Jon folded the letters with care he did not feel. "Ser Torren rides north. Lord Wyman seeks audience. Stannis demands allegiance." "All at once." "Winter moves quickly," Aemon said. "Yet you need not answer alone. Gather your brothers this night. We must decide what the Watch can risk." "I will," Jon promised, though the words were hollow. He rose, cloak heavy across his shoulders. The world had tilted. A promise long buried was clawing free like a corpse from shallow snow. And across the hall, Ghost's red eyes glinted with sudden fire. Snow skirled across Castle Black by nightfall. Torches guttered along the parapets as wind howled like wolves hunting in the dark. Jon convened the hall beneath the Lord Commander's solar, once Jorah Mormont's, now spare and echoing. Bowen Marsh stood bristling, Othel Yarwick stoic, Eliezer Thorne scowling beneath thick brows, while Pippin, Gren and Ed filled the gaps between sworn brothers and kingsmen. Stannis arrived last, red plume trembling atop his helm, flanked by Queen's men bearing fiery hearts upon their cloaks. Melisandre of Ashai glided behind him, scarlet silks whispering. Her eyes found Jon's like twin embers. He felt the heat of them as though she cupped a coal beneath his chin. "Let us be frank," Stannis began, voice taut as drawn bow. "The realm rots while a boy sits on a throne forged by conquest and lies. I have come to claim what is mine, yet the North is wounded. I require provisions, men, swift roads through snow. In return, I will defend this wall and burn the others to ash." He turned, gaze sweeping the room. "The Night's Watch chooses its lord anew. I say, choose wisely. Choose the man who can serve the realm beyond old vows. The bastard of Winterfell has proven valor. I offer him the Stark name and Winterfell itself if he will bend the knee." "Then bow." Murmurs rippled like stirred ale. Jon stepped forward, pulse hammering. "Your grace offers much, yet I swore oath to the Watch. My place is here." "Is it?" Stannis' blue eyes narrowed. A crow's cloak, draped over a prince's shoulders, does not change the blood beneath. "I have documents recovered from Dragonstone. A Septon's marriage parchment between Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Annulment of his first union, signatures of Lord Lewin Martell and Sir Arthur Dayne as witnesses. I have proof of the child born of that union, hidden by Eddard Stark, noted by Lord Commander Corgyle in private cipher. That child stands before me." Bengarawsal. Silence. Jon felt every gaze crash upon him. The hall shrank until only the beating of his heart filled the void. "You say much," Bowen Marsh croaked. "Yet a king's parchment in winter's dark proves little. We cannot trade vows for rumors. Now." Stannis drew a small scroll from his belt, tossing it upon the table. "Read. Then speak of rumors." Melisandre's smile flickered. "Light reveals all truths. The Lord Snow does not belong to shadow. He was forged for dawn." Jon forced breath into his lungs. "Even if your proofs are true, your grace, my vows remain. The wall guards men, not crowns. Cast aside that black rag and I will grant you one." Stannis growled. "Ride south beneath my banner. The realm is starved for a king who can wield both sword and honor." Jon's throat ached. He heard Lord Eddard's voice across the years. "You are a Stark." Yet another voice now whispered beneath it. "You are more." He turned to his brothers. "Tonight is not the choosing. Yet the wall must answer new questions. We will speak again come dawn." Stannis ground his teeth but nodded. He strode out, retinue in tow. Only Melisandre lingered. The flame spoke of a direwolf wreathed in dragon fire. She murmured, "Do not hide from what you are, Jon Snow." She vanished like smoke. Moonlight limned the yard's silver when Jon emerged. Ghost loped ahead, weaving between mounds of snow. Jon walked until the ramparts crouched empty and wind gnawed open sky. He pressed gloved palms against the ice. His reflection stared back. Black cloak, pale face, eyes dark as midnight. Could this man wear a crown? He remembered Robb. Scatter of curls, grin bright as summer, and felt the ache of a brother lost. Robb had borne the heavy sword and paid for it with his life. Would Jon do better? Or would the realm drown in another river of blood? A dragon has 3 heads. Aemon had told Daenerys' tale often. If Jon were head 1 and Daenerys 2, who was 3? Rhaegar had spoken cryptic prophecy, half remembered by fools. Jon cursed softly. Prophecy was for maesters and madmen. Still, he closed his eyes. He saw a shadow, a great hall, torches high, and the hush of 1,000 men bending knee. Beyond them, a throne of fused swords spiked and terrible, yet empty as a tomb. At its foot lay Ghost, red eyes gleaming. Somewhere beyond the hall, a woman's dragon screamed. Jon's eyes snapped open. The dream guttered. He turned. Sam stood behind him, cloak askew, cheeks mottled pink. "I couldn't sleep," Sam confessed. "Thought you might not either." Jon managed a smile he did not feel. "You thought right." Sam stepped beside him. "Is it true? About the parchments?" "I don't know what's true." Jon's breath misted. "But if they are, everything changes." Sam squeezed the stone parapet. "You are still you. The rest is ink on vellum." He drew a deep breath. "But the realm, 7 kingdoms, may not see it so kindly. If you claim the throne, They'll call you pretender or savior or both. If you refuse, Stannis will use those parchments to bind you, or burn them to keep you here. Mendarandshire. Jon closed his eyes, feeling the wall beneath, ancient and unmoving. I never wanted crowns. I wanted to do what was right. Then do it still, Sam said. Whatever you choose. Jon nodded, though the choice lay hidden like a blade sheathed in darkness. Morning brought Ser Torrhen Manderly riding hard through the broken gate. His beard was rimed thick with frost, blue lips cracking as he knelt before Jon in the yard. "My prince," he whispered, so quiet only Jon heard. Ser Torrhen carried a battered strongbox sealed with wax and iron. Within lay half-rotten parchments wrapped in oiled silk, ringed by a broken sigil. Three-headed dragon ringed in winter roses. Jon read his mother's name, Lyanna Stark, ink faded to rust. He read Rhaegar's signature, bold and sure above a dragon seal pressed in golden wax. He read the words of annulment to Elia Martell, the benediction of the Septon, the witnessed birth of an unnamed son. Jon's knees went weak. He felt the world tilt again, a second blow in as many days, yet this one rang pure as hammer on anvil. No rumor. No queen's spell. Proof. Ghost growled low. Jon laid one hand on the direwolf's head. Stannis came at dusk to demand answer. Jon received him in the old commander's hall, parchments on the table like freshly spilled entrails. Stannis read them in silence. When he raised his eyes, they were not cold. They burned. "The throne is yours by blood," the king declared. "Yet you will not hold it without the realm's consent. Bend the knee, bear my banner. Together we drive the Lannisters from their den. Afterward, we may speak of succession." Jon looked at the scrolls. "Bend the knee to claim what is already mine. I would trade one master for another." "Then risk all for none," Stannis retorted. "The realm devours its own. You will need gold, ships, lords, dragons if you can find them. What do you have? A band of black-cloaked wretches and half the north in chains to the Boltons." Jon's jaw clenched. He thought of Winterfell aflame, of Theon Greyjoy's betrayal, of Ramsay Snow flaying men alive beneath the flayed man's banner. He saw Arya's wolf smile. Sansa's quiet sorrow, Rickon's wide eyes. Winterfell needed saving more than any throne. "I have the wall," Jon said. "I have men sworn to guard the realm, all the realm, from foes beyond counting. Yet those men are dying. They cannot serve both crown and north." "Then choose crown." Stannis pressed. "You may rebuild the watch later." "Later there may be no wall left," Jon answered. Their stares met like drawn blades. Finally Stannis exhaled. "Very well. I leave again for Eastwatch on the morrow. Think hard. Your answer will decide more than your fate." He turned, red plume snapping. Melisandre lingered once more. "The night is dark," she whispered, "but the fire remembers. The wolf and dragon must marry within the same skin, else the darkness will drown us all." Her lips curved. "Do not fear the flames, Jon Snow. They do not burn the one who was promised." She glided out. Jon sank onto a bench. The parchments waited. The choosing of the Lord Commander came 2 nights later, torches turning the hall into a flickering cavern. Brothers of the Watch cast shards of broken weirwood for each candidate. Owen Marsh and Sir Daenerys Mallister vied hard. But when Cotter Pike, grizzled and sour, declared his shard for Jon Snow, a ripple of surprise swept the benches. One by one, others followed. Edison Tollett, Gren, Pip, Othel Yarwick, then even Elizar Thorne, grudging as a storm cloud, but cowed by necessity. When the count was done, Jon held a thin margin. Yet enough. He rose, black cloak billowing. Cheers died swiftly, as men noticed the parchments now fastened at his belt by a simple leather cord. "My brothers," Jon spoke. "I thank you, I will serve. But know this. Winter will not wait while we squabble beneath rising shadows. A greater war is coming, on both sides of the wall." He drew the scroll from his belt. "Some will name me Oathbreaker for what I will say next, yet truth does not bend to vows. I am Jon Snow of Winterfell, yes, but by birth I am Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. Gasps echoed. I claim no crown tonight. The wall must stand above crowns, yet the realm must know who guards it. I will not hide. Bowen Marsh's face reddened. Blasphemy. The Watch takes no part in thrones. We take part in life, Jon answered. If the realm will not unite, the others will feast on its bones. My blood may mend schisms or worsen them, but hiding will not help. Let the realm know the wall's voice carries a dragon's fire. Some nodded, others cursed. But the decision was Jon's. And as he donned the Lord Commander's heavy black cloak, he felt its weight anew. Not the burden of a bastard, but the mantle of a prince sworn to die in the cold, so others might live. Letters flew south on raven wings, carrying news that would tremble castles. The bastard of Winterfell claimed Targaryen blood. At White Harbor, Lord Wyman swore his city to the trueborn son of his beloved Lyanna, pledging ships and silver once trade lanes thawed. At Bear Island, Lady Mage Mormont answered with a single line. The North remembers and follows the blood of Roth kings in the North. Across the sea, in young Kai's dusty court, Spymaster Varys pressed a scroll before Queen Regent Cersei, and she screamed so loudly the Red Keep's ravens took flight in a clatter of frightened wings. In Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen lingered yet in distant exile. Her unsullied marched, her freedmen cheered, but each step forward was balked by slavers' gold and plague's whisper. Rumor sifted across the Jade Sea, a boy of ice and fire stirring in Westeros. Some named him false, others prophesied dawn. Ser Jorah Mormont delivered the tale to Daenerys' throne room, falling to one knee. My queen, they say the prince rides with a white wolf and carries the North's heart in his breast. Daenerys studied the shadow of a dragon wing crossing the marble floor. A dragon has 3 heads, she whispered. Perhaps the coin did not land on its edge after all. But the sea lay cruel between them, and Meereen's pyramids cast long shadows of their own. She turned away, for her people bled here and now. At the wall, Lord Commander Jon Snow, Aegon, as the parchments called him, prepared. He dispatched wildling runners to Tormund Giantsbane, offering parley. Free passage south, lands in the gift. Shared watch upon the wall's broken gates. He sent ravens to Stannis at Eastwatch, reminding the king that dead men care little for crowns. He instructed Sam to scour every record for lore of dragonglass mines and Valyrian spellwork. He ordered Gianna, the smith's apprentice, to reforge shattered swords into spear tips that could pierce white flesh. He dreamt nightly of a weirwood grove bathed in starlight, where a kneeling girl with violet eyes whispered, "Not alone, my brother." And one dawn he woke to red song. Horns blaring, watchmen shouting, the wall trembling. A shape rose beyond the haunted forest, high and dark as a thunderhead, silent save for the moaning wind. It moved with slow inevitability, an avalanche of ice wreathed in pale blue torches. The others had come. Jon strode to the wall's edge, Longclaw at his hip. Ghost growled, white hackles raised. He heard Sam's breathless voice behind him. "How many?" "Enough to drown the world," Jon answered softly. He lifted his black hood. "Sound every horn, light every beacon. Summon the king." The horns keened thrice, echoing across the frozen lake. Fires roared to life. Men scrambled along battlements like ants stirring a nest. Jon watched the dead advance. He felt terror, yes, and awe, but also something else, resolve forged by truths too vast for one man. Prince or bastard, Lord Commander or king, he would meet them here, beneath the black banners of the Night's Watch, cloak flapping like dragon wings in the storm. And when dawn broke, or did not, history would remember the hour a wolf of Winterfell bared dragon's teeth at death itself. 3 nights passed in siege. The wall held, yet cracks splintered where ice met unnatural frost. Stannis' fleet approached Eastwatch, sails tattered, men scarred. Melisandre stood at prow, hands raised against the snow, fire dancing at her fingertips. Jon rode the lift down to greet them, armor rimed with blood that steamed in the cold. He met Stannis between drifting snowbanks and bowed stiffly. "You waited long," Jon said. "Winter waits for no man," Stannis replied. "Nor king." They clasped arms. In that clasp, terms unspoken hardened. Alliance of necessity, forged in black steel and blue flame. For a time crowns could wait. Word spread south like wildfire in summer drought. The wall besieged, an army of dead beyond counting. A prince revealed beneath black. At King's Landing, Cersei confined herself within Maegor's holdfast, demanding wildfire caches be tripled. At Highgarden, Lady Olenna wrote hurried letters to Sunspear and Storm's End. In Old Town, the Archmaesters argued prophecy and sent ravens to Meereen. All the while winter's first true blizzard swept the neck, blanketing the King's Road until travelers vanished in drifts deeper than men stood tall. Jon fought nightly upon crumbling gatehouses, blade clashing against crystal ice. He burned whites by the dozen, felt blackened tears freeze upon his cheeks. Yet something inside him ignited. Each battle stoked a furnace of will. The blood of the dragon, perhaps, though no flame burned him. When Melisandre watched, her eyes widened. "You wield light without torch," she murmured. But the wall could not stand forever. On the seventh night, a giant wight hurled a boulder that smashed 3 courses of the gate. Jon ordered the tunnel sealed with wildfire kegs blessed by the Red Priestess. They burned so hot the ice glowed green, but still the dead pressed. It was then a raven arrived, wings near frozen to its sides. Its scroll bore Bear Island's seal. Lady Mage had set sail with 20 longships stuffed with hardened spearmen, wild as the seas they rode, and 3 crates of dragon-glass daggers found in caves beneath the isle. Jon read the letter twice and smiled despite the blood on his lips. "I knew your mother," Mage wrote. "And I know you, boy. We will meet in the south soon. Hold the wall until the north is ready." Jon folded the parchment. "See to it Ghost keeps this safe," he told Edie. "If I fall, the north must know why." That night, while the blizzard shrieked, Jon felt the wall shiver as though giants labored inside its marrow. He climbed to the highest tower and found Melisandre standing upon the parapet, hair twisting like crimson fire. "The wall is stone and sorrow," she said, "but even sorrow melts. The prince who was promised must choose. Remain Lord Commander and watch men perish, or become the dragon and burn a path south." Jon's jaw clenched. How? Blood for blood. Fire for ice. Her eyes kindled. Azor Ahai forged Lightbringer thrice. On the third, he pierced the heart of the one he loved. Only then did the sword burn true. Jon recoiled. "I will not kill for a sword." Melisandre's smile was sad. "You may yet kill for a world." Lightning forked across cloud. In its glare, Jon saw her shadow dance upon the ice, horned, crowned, haloed in flame. He turned away, horror roiling in his gut. When dawn bled gray, a horn sounded not from the wall, but from beyond the dead host. Jon squinted through swirling flakes. On a distant ridge, banners flapped. One bore a flayed man, another a roaring lion, but between them flew a black and red dragon sigil new forged. Beneath those banners, armored lines unfurled. Northmen in mail patched with fur, Stormlanders beneath Stannis' own stag, and wildlings screaming free folk war songs. Stannis had marched through the snow on secret paths while the dead assailed the front. He had drawn the Boltons from Dreadfort with promises of pardon and gold. Then he had turned their host upon the others, for the living needed every blade. Even the Lion of Lannister marched. Sir Kevin's banners, perhaps, lured by survival. Jon exhaled frost. The living had come. They were raw, ragged, but they were here. He ordered the gates open just long enough. Wildfire no longer burned the tunnel, then charged with a spearhead of rangers. Longclaw sang against crystal. Ghost tore a white from shoulder to hip. Stannis knights crashed into the undead flank, flaming swords borrowed from Melisandre's pyres. No battle had ever looked stranger. Northmen shoulder to shoulder with free folk raiders. Boltons hacking whites they once stripped of flesh. A red woman calling flame from snow. And in its heart, rode Jon Snow, black cloak streaming, face blood-flecked, eyes luminous with some inner blaze. The dead broke after a day and night, shattered like brittle glass, wind scattering shards across the haunted plain. The price was terrible. 300 watch brothers, half the king's men, near all the Boltons. Yet the breach in the wall held, and for the first time in memory, living men's cheers echoed where only wind had howled. Jon stood among corpses that hissed and melted in funeral pyres. He looked south, toward kingdoms still in chaos, and felt weight settle on his shoulders heavier than any cloak. A king's war awaited. But for one heartbeat, Jon allowed himself a single breath, unclawed by dread. "Not alone, my brother," the dream voice whispered again. Wintercourt they called the gathering that followed. A council of kings and lords amidst frost-crusted tents beneath the wall's shadow. Stannis presided, but eyes flicked to Jon Snow as often as to the crowned stag. Maester Aemon, bundled in thick furs, sat beside Jon, blind gaze drifting as though he could see the dance of destinies. "Westeros cannot fight 2 wars, Stannis declared. Cersei clutches King's Landing like a drowning rat. The Reach grows fat on grain while the riverlands starve. Dorne stirs. We march south united, or die piecemeal. Dendawal." Lord Wyman manderly thumped his cane. "United under which banner, your grace?" He glanced at Jon. "The North will follow Stark blood, Targaryen blood, before Baratheon's claim. Ser Davos." Seaworth rose. "Then pledge to his grace till the throne is reclaimed. After, the lords may sit in council to decide succession." "Succession decided by swords is no council," growled Mage Mormont. All argument circled until Jon spoke. "The Iron Throne matters not if the realm is already dead. We fight Cersei first. I will march as Lord Commander, as Prince, as Bastard. Call me any name. But I will not kneel until the Queen is gone and the realm can choose freely." Bah. Stannis' jaw worked, but at last he nodded. "So be it. When the Lannisters lie broken, we will decide." Melisandre's lips curved. "The flames approve." So the pact formed. A grand host, ragged yet determined, would march south as soon as roads allowed. The free folk remained to guard the wall under Night's Watch command. Wildlings had little love for crowns, but they loved the living warmth of a hearth unshared with whites far more. Jon spent the next fortnight drilling new recruits. Wildlings, Northmen, Kingsmen, even a dozen Reachers embittered by Lannister loans. He shared what little dragonglass remained. He wrote to Old Town for knowledge of wildfire, to White Harbor for fresh grain by sea, to Pike for ironborn raids against Lannister convoys. Each letter bore the black seal of the Watch and a red sigil newly carved, a direwolf intertwined with 3-headed dragon. Some agreed, some refused, yet replies arrived swifter than snowflakes. A storm was coming so fierce even archmaesters felt its chill. On the eve of departure, Maester Aemon called Jon to the rookery. The old man's breaths rattled. He took Jon's hands. "You have a good heart, Jon. That may be your true sword." Jon knelt. "I will try not to shame your faith." Aemon's fingers tightened. "When you reach King's Landing, look for the Red Keep's hidden passages. The dragon's lair lies beneath the hill. Fire remembers its own." It was cryptic, yet Jon accepted the burden. He left Aemon at dawn, Ghost loping beside, Stannis banners flapping in a pale sun. The army snaked south. 3,000 foot, 1,000 horse, 10 scrawny giants, 2 scorpions salvaged from Eastwatch, and a broken nation's last hopes trailing like breath in the chill. Jon rode at front beneath the Night's Watch sable sunburst, black on black, as wrong and right as any banner could be. He did not look back. The wall receded, blue and unreachable. South lay war, and perhaps one day peace, if dragons of flesh or spirit yet soared. Far across narrow seas, a silver-haired queen listened as wind beat against Meereen's shutters. Ser Barristan's latest letter trembled in her hands. "Aegon lives. A dragon of north wind and tragedy marches for the throne. Some will follow him for his mother's sake, some for prophecy, some because they need a dream that bleeds." Daenerys' breath fogged the paper. Drogon roared somewhere above the city, wings cracking storm clouds. She closed her eyes and thought of Westeros, of a red keep, and a crown she believed fate reserved for her alone. Yet fate, it seemed, had other children. A dragon has 3 heads. She whispered, "Perhaps the world will burn bright enough to reveal the last." She summoned her counselors. The tide had turned. She would not be the last to sail. In the riverlands, blackfish banners rallied millers and masons. In the Vale, young Lord Robert whispered of a prince who fought the dead, his eyes wide with dreams of heroes. At Sunspear, Princess Arianne traced Rhaegar's sigil and wondered whether blood must answer blood, in fire or in peace. Rumor became song. The bastard dragon marches. The wolf, with dragon's heart. Aegon Snow. The North remembers. Cersei Lannister heard the songs and ordered tongues ripped out. But songs are wind. They slip through cracks and echo in empty halls. And the high towers of King's Landing began to tremble with footsteps of ghosts. The host reached the Frostfangs as spring's first thaw carved rivers beneath snow. Scouts returned with news. Ramsay Bolton had deserted Winterfell, marching his remaining men south to join Lannister forces. The castle lay open, occupied by a skeleton garrison too sick or maimed to travel. Jon stood upon a ridge, watching smoke spiral from distant chimneys. Gray tendrils of a home long lost. Stannis rode up. "Take it," the king advised. "The North will fight harder with hearthfires waiting." Jon shook his head. "Not yet. Let Winterfell heal without more blood. We march south. When the war ends, we return whole." Stannis frowned, but saw wisdom. They pushed on. Each dawn the air warmed, yet winter's teeth still bit. Men died from fever, from wolves, from buried spearheads left after a century of border skirmishes. Yet they marched. And in their wake, freed villages lit watchfires on every hill, a chain of flame that snaked from Winterfell to Moat Cailin, shining like a dragon on the move. The Iron Throne glittered beneath stained-glass light as Cersei paced. Jaime watched from the base of the steps, golden hand glinting. Every raven screams treason. She hissed. A bastard half-wolf, half-dragon. Northmen swarm. Riverlords break their chains. I will not lose the capital to some snow-born whelp. Jaime's lips twitched. He fights others, sister. Perhaps he does the realm a service. Cersei's eyes blazed green wildfire. Then he can serve it from a grave. She ordered Qyburn to rouse the alchemists. Wildfire barrels rolled through hidden tunnels, destined for every gate. Jon's army reached the neck where bogs swallowed hooves. Reed sentinels guided them along dike paths and raised causeways. Greywater Watch emerged from mist like a dream. Howland Reed met Jon beneath weeping willows, turning his eyes, gray-wise, upon the young commander. "I was there," Reed said softly. "At the Tower of Joy. I saw your father kneel beside your mother's bed." Jon's throat tightened. "Why did you never speak?" "Because Ned Stark asked." Howland exhaled a world of regret. "I will break that silence now. The North must know truth to heal. Go claim your crown, Prince of Winter." He pressed a bundle into Jon's hands. A cloak of sky-blue wool bordered in red and black, sewn by Mira's careful stitches. Jon felt its weight kiss his shoulders, wolf fur trimmed with dragon wings. At Storm's End, the army grew as garrisons defected. Shagga son of Dolph led stone crows screaming from mountain passes, flinging axes beside sellswords of lice. 1,000 reachmen under Sir Garland Tyrell discarded golden roses and took up a new banner, a direwolf intertwined with dragon's head, all set ablaze. Jon stood upon the battlements one morning, wind off Shipbreaker Bay snarling in his hair. He watched waves claw black rocks like beasts caged too long. Sea spray salted his lips. For a heartbeat he felt the dragon stir within bones frozen since birth. A rush of heat so fierce his breath steamed in warm gusts. "What am I becoming?" he wondered. Yet the answer did not frighten him as it once had. He was becoming necessity. From Storm's End, they marched north along the Roserad, trading winter's fangs for muddy spring. Crops sprouted, where snow receded. Peasants lined ditches, offering baskets of bread baked from last year's meager harvest. They called, "Save us, brave crow." They knelt, some sobbing, not for a king but for deliverance. Jon accepted none of the titles they showered upon him, yet he let them gaze upon the parchments he kept near his heart. Proof bred hope. That hope became a river, picking up fishermen from Maidenpool, smiths from Crackclaw Point, rebels from the Vale of Arryn. Each joined the flood, and the Iron Throne felt the tremor of that rising tide. By the time Jon's host reached the Blackwater Rush, Cersei had lined the north bank with scorpions and trebuchets. Wildfire kegs floated beneath crude rafts, ready to ignite should the rebels attempt crossing. Lannister banners rippled above crenellations, rebuilt since Stannis' first siege. Stannis gazed across the river, face carved in stone. "Not again," he muttered. Jon surveyed the defenses. He turned to Davos. "We build no bridge. We empty the river." "Empty the river," the Onion Knight echoed. "Upstream," Jon said. "The Roserad crosses dams and floodgates. We break them all. Let the river pour into fields and leave this stretch bone dry. Wildfire floats, but it cannot burn on mud." Within a week, the Blackwater's current thinned, redirected into irrigations that turned farmland to floodplains. At dawn of the 8th day, Jon led spearmen across knee-deep muck, arrows whining overhead, but biting only water. Lannister lines held, but the North's fury was tempered by Southern steel. Sir Garland Tyrell's knights crashed into gold-clad infantry. Shagga's clansmen sprang from culverts. The king's men raised flaming hearts. And at the center rode Jon, cloak of wolf and dragon, streaming black steam. Cersei watched from the ramparts, teeth grinding. The wildfire she prized lay stranded on cracked riverbed, barrels green and impotent. Her screams carried to the sky. The Battle of the Blackwater Mud lasted 3 days. On the 4th, Tywin Lannister's bannermen sued for parley, Sir Kevan bearing a white flag. Jon met him in the ruins of the King's Gate, now rent wide enough to fit a mammoth. Ghost prowled beside Jon, teeth bared. Kevan bowed. "The realm needs peace, and the boy on the throne needs guidance. Queen Cersei is not fit to rule." "Nor am I eager for more blood," Jon answered. "Promise safe conduct for women and children. Your soldiers may lay down arms or leave unharmed. The throne will be decided by a council of lords, north, south, east, and west." Kevan's shoulders sagged in relief. "You would spare the crown?" "I would spare the people." Yet Cersei would not be spared so easily. She fled into Maegor's tunnels with Qyburn, and what wildfire remained. Jaime pursued, golden hand clutching torch. Somewhere beneath the Red Keep's foundations, the lioness cornered herself amid barrels of green fire, threatening to set all ablaze rather than yield her cub. Jaime stood before her, sword lowered. "It ends, Cersei," he said. "For Tommen's sake." Her eyes gleamed mad. "For mine." She hurled a lantern. Jaime leapt, halting flame mid-arc, smashing it beneath mailed boot. Ember hissed on damp stone. Cersei shrieked. Guards pulled her away in iron chains. King's Landing lived. When the gates opened, Jon Snow entered not as conqueror, but as ward against chaos. He stationed watch brothers at each gate, recorded surrendered arms, fed starving orphans with grain from Storm's End and Highgarden. Maester Pycelle bent crooked knee, as did Grand Maester Conleth of the Red Keep's hidden passageways, though one of those knees nearly gave out. On the throne's dais, Jon addressed a hall thick with dust and anticipation. Lords of every corner crowded as though drawn by lodestone. "I do not claim the Iron Throne today," Jon said. Murmurs rose. He raised a hand. "Nor does Stannis Baratheon. The realm has bled under kings who prized crown over people. We will choose our ruler by council, one voice of each kingdom, sworn to uphold peace. When the council decides, I will abide." "And that council will choose you," shouted a voice. Jon saw Lady Olenna's sharp eyes twinkle. "Then let it be by their will, not mine," Jon answered. "I have guarded realms of men. I will again, whether from a throne or from the wall." He stepped aside. Stannis' jaw tensed, but he bowed. Council was set for 14 days hence, time for riders to summon lords. Ravenry flew like never before. Queen Cersei, dethroned, languished in a tower cell. King Tommen, shy and thin, clung to Sir Pounce while Maester Pycelle dried his tears. Sir Jaime sat at his son's side. Silent bronze, sentinel. And across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen boarded a ship at last, dragons screaming overhead. Jon spent the days restoring order, dousing pockets of wildfire, parleying with sellsword companies that roamed in Golden Company livery. He spoke to Tommen gently, refusing to steal crown from a boy, a kindness that unnerved courtiers used to cruelty. At night he walked the Red Keep's crypts, guided by torches and Aemon's memory. Beneath the dragon skulls he found a black iron gate half buried in rubble, ghost scratched until stone scraped open. Beyond lay a cavern where fossilized flames licked vaulted basalt walls. Bones of dragons great and small carpeted the ground. But in the farthest alcove glimmered something whole. 3 stone eggs, hairline cracks webbing their shells, leaking warmth into frozen air. Jon knelt, breath clenched. He placed one palm on the central egg. Heat pulsed. Blood rushed in his ears. Ghost howled. The egg's cracks widened, shedding scales like embers. A chirp, a pierce of sound, cut silence. Then the shell burst. From within wriggled a hatchling, coal black with streaks of red across wing membranes. It peered at Jon with eyes molten gold and let out a sound between hiss and purr. Jon lifted it carefully. The hatchling's warmth seeped into his veins, spreading like dawn across iced fields. He felt as though a door long shut had opened. A dragon, he whispered. Or perhaps only hope. Outside the cavern, Melisandre awaited. She smiled, a rare, gentle curve. The light has found its vessel, she said. Jon cradled the hatchling. This changes everything. It changes nothing, she countered. You were chosen long before this egg cracked. He shook his head. It changes the council. He carried the dragon into morning's first blush. Word spread before he reached the throne room. A dragon hatched beneath the Red Keep, born in a bastard prince's hands. Some declared miracle, others omen of doom. Small folk crowded streets dreaming of silver nights and dawnfires. The council chamber could scarcely contain the fervor. When the day came, banners of every kingdom ringed the throne. Manderly mermen, reed lizard lions, Martell sunspears, Tyrell golden roses, Arryn falcons, Tully leaping trout, Clegane hounds of the Blackwater Vale, Lannister lions dimmed by tarnish, Baratheon stag aflame, and among them the new standard of the Night's Watch, black direwolf circled by red dragon. Jon stood beneath those sigils, hatchling perched upon his gloved wrist. The council convened. Voices rose, fell, tangled. Arguments of blood versus merit, of prophecy versus precedent. Yet each time tempers flared, the dragonling shrieked, and silence settled like snow. In that hush, men found clarity beyond ambition. On the third night, the vote came. One by one, lords and ladies tossed stones of their house colors into a plain iron bowl. When the tally was read, the hall held its breath. Unanimous. Jon of houses Stark and Targaryen, first of his name, King of the Andals, Rhoynar and First Men, protector of the realm. Jon's eyes stung. He set the dragonling upon the throne's arm and turned to the hall. I accept, he said, voice low yet carrying. On one condition. The wall must stand. The realm must guard against winter always. The Night's Watch shall be renewed, supplied by each kingdom. Their Lord Commander shall answer only to realm, not crown. All agreed. For how could they deny the king forged by both ice and fire? Crown of swords and rubies clasped his brow. Ghost howled from the steps. The dragonling unfurled wings, leapt, and settled upon Jon's shoulder, scales shimmering crimson beneath half-lit chandeliers. Melisandre watched from shadowed alcove, lips barely moving. It begins. And across storm-tossed seas, Daenerys' fleet sighted Westeros' pale cliffs. Drogon swept overhead, roaring challenge to the dawn. But in Daenerys' heart flickered something other than wrath, curiosity, hope, perhaps kinship. A dragon has 3 heads, she whispered again. High above, dark clouds parted to reveal a single shaft of sunlight spearing the sea, guiding her westward, toward a brother who wore a crown of winter steel and carried spring's first fire upon his shoulder. The Game of Thrones had ended in bloodless council, yet the Dance of Dragons was only beginning. The new king did not sleep that first night, though the blankets were soft for the first time in moons, and the hearth beat steady heat against stone walls, older than Aegon the Conqueror's ambitions. Jon Snow, still learning to answer when men called him Your Grace, lay awake beneath the red and black canopy, listening to ghosts' slow breathing at the foot of the bed and to the newborn dragon's quieter rasp of wings as it dreamed on a perch above the mantel. Outside, King's Landing muttered like a restive giant, casks rolling, chains clinking, distant horses stamping on flagstones as patrols changed. The city had not yet decided whether to fear him or to hope, and so it did both at once. Shortly before dawn, Sir Davos knocked and entered without waiting, boots damp from the rain that had drifted in off Blackwater Bay. His lamps lit hollows in his cheeks, and the salt streaks in his beard looked like frost. "They're sighted," he said low, mindful of the creature rustling its wings behind him. 3 sails on the horizon, black as midnight. Torch drakes wheeling above. I saw 2, maybe 3 beasts. Big as hovels, your Jon. Let her land. Jon pushed the coverlet aside. The chill stung. Welcome after too much stuffy heat. Bar the wildfire vaults and line the docks with buckets. No quarrels drawn, and send a raven to Dragonstone. Aemon Targaryen, King of the 7 Kingdoms, invites Daenerys Stormborn to parley. Davos' brows climbed. Stannis would chafe. Stannis is at Rosby fortifying the Roserad. By the time ravens find him it will be done. And the lords on your council? They swore to peace 2 nights past. Let them prove their vows hold longer than a barrel of wine. No. He dressed in quiet haste. Black leather doublet quilt stitched with red thread, gray wool breeches, a cloak of dire wolf fur lined in scarlet silk that still felt strange on his shoulders. Long claw hung at his hip, hilt bound in fresh leather but pommel untouched, the white stone wolf's head shining in lamplight. The dragonling fluttered down and circled him twice, nipping lazily at the wolf fur before settling like a living torque across his back. Ghost padded behind, silent as snowfall. They crossed corridors lit by sputtering tallow. Servants pressed flat against walls, gaping at the scaled shadow on the king's shoulder. In the small council chamber, the fire had guttered low, but the king's counselors were already gathered around the oaken table. Lord Wyman manderly wheezing beside a platter of sugared pears, Lady Olenna Tyrell pouring herself tea as calmly as if war councils were garden parties, Prince Doran Martell cloaked to the chin against northern drafts, Sir Garland standing for the reach in his brother's stead, Halm and Reed ghosting in a corner with damp boots, and Reed's. Beside the hearth loomed Brienne of Tarth, taller even than Sir Gregor's broken armor now mounted in a distant cell. The murmurs hushed when Jon entered. The hatchling lifted its snout, hissed softly, then folded wings once more. 3 ships approach, the king said without ceremony. Targaryen banners. Mage Mormont spat into the ash bucket. 3 dragons loose above a city that just bled? Madness. Madness is denying blood when it stands at your gate. Howland Reed murmured. I saw her father's court. Fire and terror burn, yes, but they ignite courage too. And now, Olenna rattled her cup onto its saucer. I have buried more dragons than most of you have tasted wine. Invite her. Offer cakes and courtesies. If she swoops toward treachery, we stab her politely through the back at dessert. Jon ignored the last. Where stands the wildfire? Lord Wyman consulted a ledger. 71 casks undiscovered, but Qyburn turned half into powder for his potions. That stock we destroyed. The rest is secure, under the Red Keep in chambers, locked by Davos keys and mine. Then the city will not burn today, Jon said. Ready the hall of 49 hearths. We greet her at midday. By sunrise, the capital seethed like a pot about to boil. Word galloped faster than ravens. The Dragon Queen approaches. Some prayed to the Seven, some to the Red God, some to gods long forgotten. Gold cloaks lined the streets 2 men deep, breastplates newly burnished. The smiths of the Street of Steel banged anvils in slow thunder, forging spears that would likely never leave racks. Out on Blackwater Bay, 3 galleys eased across water calm as molten lead. The Wind's Grace, the Summer Child, and a sleek warship whose hull bore Valyrian glyphs that made sailors blanch. Above them circled Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal, wings casting shifting eclipses across the city. Jon stood on the quay with Sir Davos and Lord Garland, wind tugging his cloak. The hatchling, Nages, Sam had named it from an old Valyrian word for dawn, clung stubbornly to his shoulder, eyes gold bright with excitement at the elder beasts weaving overhead. Ghost prowled circles at Jon's heel, sniffing sour salt air. Daenerys Targaryen crossed the gangplank first, hair pale silver in the weak sunlight. A battered leather jerkin over riding leathers dyed deep indigo, boots stained with brine. To her left strode Missandei of Enith. To her right, Grey Worm in unsullied armor blackened by soot. Behind came Barristan Selmy and Tyrion Lannister, in plain traveling cloak. 2 Dothraki blood riders brought up the rear, boots slick on wet plank wood. The dock fell silent except for waves and the distant cry of gulls. Jon inclined his head. Queen Daenerys. King? She hesitated on the title, violet eyes sharp. Jon. He gestured to the dragon curled against his collarbone. Your sister, I believe. A faint smile touched her lips. She is handsome. Shay? Jon glanced at the dragon, which chose that moment to snap at his ear. Very well. She. Drogon banked low, beating salt spray into swirling mist. Dock workers lurched back, some dropping crates into the bay. The black dragon's gaze flashed molten iron toward Jon before drifting to the hatchling, as if recognizing kin. Rhaegal and Viserion settled on broken ramparts of the old chain tower, stone cracking beneath their talons. We have a hall prepared, Jon said. I come as guest, not conqueror. She stepped onto the mossy pier. Lead, your grace. They walked through wharfs reeking of tar and fish guts, then into the fish market where merchants gawked openly. Jon's gold cloaks held back the swell, though small folk pressed forward to toss violet petals, scrounged from sept gardens long untended, at Daenerys' boots. The queen touched hands like a septa blessing orphans, and each touch set tongues wagging. Tyrion drifted beside Jon, one eye on crowd, one on sky. People love pageant, he murmured. Best feed them a tale sweeter than stew before they invent poison of their own. I feed them safety, Jon answered. Tyrion's mouth twisted. Safety bores faster than song, but you'll learn. At the hall entrance, Mage Mormont barked orders at guards to search all guests, but Daenerys raised a hand, palm outward. No blade save honor, Lady Bear. She said, recognizing Mage's sigil. If you mean me ill, a knife on my belt or not will matter little. Mage grunted, impressed. She sheathed her sword. Inside, 49 hearths blazed, smoke drawn through cunning vents built by Aegon's masons. Long tables groaned under wheels of goat cheese, herb-stuffed capons, crushed berry cakes. Jon guided Daenerys to a dais draped in black velvet edged with red wolves. Servants supplied goblets of Dornish red, but the king lifted only water. To parley, he said. To days undarkened by fire. She replied, though her gaze flicked to the hearths in quick study. They spoke long hours while counselors listened behind parted velvet screens. Jon laid bare the council's pact. Daenerys recounted Meereen's liberation, her city now ruled by freedmen under Grey Worm's command. The brass harpy toppled into the slavers' bay. She spoke of plague and famine, of the sons of the harpies' knives, of the mercy she learned to temper with fear. I burned masters who crucified children, she said, holding Jon's gaze unflinchingly. I will not apologize for monsters' ash. He did not flinch. I slew men of my own order when they raised blades against the living. Sometimes steel must speak hard truths. Nender Wandor. Their words rang across the chamber, heavy as anvils. Tyrion's eyes danced between them. When talk turned to the crown, she leaned forward, elbows on polished oak. My claim is older than yours. Older, Jon allowed. Not stronger, perhaps, but stronger claims have shattered kingdoms before. That sounds like threat. Warning only, he said. The realm is weary of war. I would see it united behind one banner, not riven again. Then bend your knee, she challenged. The dragonling stirred, clicking fangs at her sharper than a suitor's warning. Jon stroked its neck. There may be another way. A hush swallowed light chatter, leaving only the crackle of logs. Tyrion muttered, "Gods save fools," into his wine. Daenerys' brows knit. Marriage, Jon said simply. Stark to Targaryen, ice to fire. Not for love, for realm. Ghost's ears pricked at a distant echo. Perhaps the city itself held its breath. And if I refuse? She asked. Then we lay our claims before the great council. Let lords choose. I will not draw swords against living men again, while the dead still menace the north. Her eyes softened. The walkers haunt your dreams. They haunt my door. She nodded, gaze distant, as though seeing snowy wastes. I swore to free the oppressed. The dead are worst oppressors of all. Then ride with me when snows thaw, he said. She sipped wine, lips stained purple. Perhaps. That night Daenerys walked the ramparts alone until footsteps joined. Barristan Selmy, silver hair whipped wild by sea wind. My queen? I should hate him, she confessed. He sits on the throne promised by sky and stars. Yet he offered to share it before he'd tasted my salt. And no. Your brother Rhaegar wrote sonnets of prophecy, Selmy answered. Perhaps the songs were always duet. She glanced skyward. The dragons slept entwined atop the Maegor's holdfast. He is half wolf. Wolves mate for life. Dragons less so. Selmy smiled. Perhaps these dragons may learn. Below, in crypt corridors, Jon walked with Howland Reed. Karstark engineers had unearthed tunnels older than Valyrian steel, each filled with dusty stench of pyre ash. One cavern held shelves of cracked glass jars, wildfire gone inert after centuries of damp seepage. Reed lit a torch. You speak marriage with Dragon Queen, he said, tone neither approving nor condemning. It may bind the realm, Jon replied. Will it bind her dragons? They follow smell of truth. Reed's smile was tired. Truth smells different to every man. Councils multiplied. Rhaenys' hill thrummed with clashing desires. Lady Olenna argued dowry. Wyman Manderley demanded codicils to secure northern autonomy. Prince Doran whispered of justice for Elia Martell, Rhaegar's scorned wife. Garland Tyrell tracked grain to feed armies, while Brienne drilled city guards until spears rattled bones. Cersei Lannister remained locked in Tower Cell, and each dawn Jaime visited, hand resting on sword pommel. Do you know who sits the throne? He asked on seventh visit. A dragon's bastard, she spat. He offered trial. I will not dance for his amusement. He gave Tommen his cat back. Cersei's sneer faltered a heartbeat. Jaime leaned close. Say the words, sister. Confess and live quiet years in exile. Exile is death. Then you choose other death. Her laugh was brittle glass. I choose my crown. No crown awaits, only mercy or block. She turned away, hair lank, voice a rasp. Then sharpen the axe. Jon dreaded signing the warrant. He delayed through new crises. Ironborn reavers struck Fair Isle. Slavers raided Anaith again. The hatching pits beneath the Red Keep erupted with 2 more eggs fissuring, though neither quickened past first twitch. Maester Samuel suspected temperature too low. Dragons hatched aflame, he said. Stone hearths could not mimic pyres. The Red Woman visited again. Scarlet gown swirling like spilled blood on marble. "You ride north soon," she said without preamble. "After the harvest," he answered. "Before snows drown roads." He wondered whom her prophecy served now that Stannis' banner no longer crowned her vision. "Will you march with us?" "With the light, always." She studied the dragon perched on curtain rod, wings spreading in lamplight. "3 heads," she murmured. 2 eggs cracked but died. The 3rd shall kindle when the mother of flame weaves blood with snow. Prophecy again. "Truth," she countered. "Fire knows." Meanwhile, Daenerys walked the crypts where dragons slept in death. Her hand brushed skulls of Balerion and Vhagar. She whispered in Valyrian, and low echoes curled like incense from black bone. Drogon stalked behind, uneasy amid tomb air, yet obedient. At a dais of cracked marble, she found a tapestry torn half away, revealing wall carvings, a direwolf intertwined with dragon wings, sigil of Joan's forging, but older, half worn by time, chisel lines even and measured. She traced them. "Someone dreamed you," she told the stone. Negotiations stretched through harvest moon. Each night Jon walked walls with her, speaking of pasts they scarcely knew. He told of Ned Stark's stern kindness, of Robb's laughter, of Arya's ferocity. She told of Viserys' cruelty, of Khal Drogo's oath beneath stars, of losing a son and gaining 3. They spoke of Melisandre's shadows and Quaithy's riddles, of Bran's ravens and Sam's tomes. Trust budded like crocuses through thinning snow. Finally one crisp dawn she met him in the godswood that Aegon had grown in foreign soil. Thin heart tree transplanted from Winterfell sapling, red leaves blushing deeper in southern sun. They stood beneath weeping red branches. "I will wed you," she said. He nodded, throat warm, half relieved, half afraid, but not for throne. She looked skyward to where distant cirrus trailed dragon-shaped clouds. For war to come. The world must see fire and frost join. They will. And after? When darkness is ash? We decide then. He touched her hand, calloused fingertips brushing dragonglass scars she hid beneath gloves. Together. Thought. The heart tree rustled as if breathing assent. When lords gathered to witness betrothal, Tyrion quipped there was not enough parchment in the realm to record precedents shattered that day. Northern kings wedding conquerors, Night's Watch oaths set aside by Council of Kingdoms, dragons perched in godswood like blasphemous crows. Even Olenna wiped a tear, though she pretended a lash had fallen into her eye. Preparations began at once. Prince Doran offered quills of bright Dornish sand to dye banners half red, half gray. Manderly cooks rehearsed feasts of honeyed cod and lemon butter eel. Garland Tyrell ordered winter roses forced in hothouses, so blossoms would rival Highgarden blooms even in frost. Howland Reed dispatched marsh folk to scour swamps for blue moss that produced rare dye. Ice Fire Blue, he called it, for seamstresses. The city hummed with feverish industry. Scepters recut crown jewels to meld sigils. Wolf's head nestled between dragon's wings wrought of garnets. Septons argued liturgy. Raylor priests argued fire pit placement. Maesters measured eclipses for auspicious timing. Jon found himself yearning for quiet nights on the wall, where ceremony meant candles and simple vows before blackened steel. Yet not all welcomed union. Sons of the Harpy agents, long dormant in Westeros, infiltrated Flea Bottom. 2 were caught near the dragon pit with flasks of poison tipped for Nages. Under the rack, they named a Meereenese master, still living in lies, who cast long gold to see dragons fall. Daenerys' gaze went flint when she heard. Fetch him bound in iron. she ordered. Grey Worm. Jon stayed her hand. He's half a world away. She spoke in Valyrian, voice like chilled steel. I will cross it for justice. You will not leave unwed, nor sail while war brews. She relented, but each dawn he saw her pacing towers, looking east. 2 days before the wedding, a raven arrived from the wall borne by Maester Aemon's own Black. The dead stirred anew at the gorge beyond the Queen's Crown ruin, their numbers swollen by giants and ice spiders 20 men tall. Tormund Giantsbane wrote they held but one hillock, desperately, waiting for king and queen. Jon read the parchment by candle, and felt cold seep deeper than stone. He sought Daenerys in her solar, above the maiden vault. It is time, he said. She unfurled parchment, eyes tightening. They die even as we feast. We delay no longer. The wedding, on the march, Jon decided. A.T. Queen's Crown beneath falling snow, before gods of old and new. She smiled, sudden as sunrise. A dragon wedding in the snow, Viserys would howl. Let him. They summoned council that night. Some protested. Olenna feared frostbite on fine silks. Manderly worried larder spoiling on road. Yet no voice outweighed the parchment's bloody smudges where Tormund's finger had frozen mid-ink. The capital would see simple coronation of regents in their stead. Garland Tyrell to govern south. Doran Martell to advise. Jaime accepted wardenship of the city watch under Brienne's watchful scowl. At dawn, drums thundered through muddy lanes. 30,000 marched north. Northmen under bear and merman banners, Dornish spearmen in sand-colored cloaks. Reach cavalry clad green, unsullied ranks glinting dull steel. Free folk shaggy atop stolen garrons, and dragons overhead casting colossal shadows that made children squeal and mothers pray. Ghost loped ahead like silent outrider. Nages clung to Jon's pauldron. Drogon roared, accepting the sky as path. The King's Road vanished beneath sleet by the second week. Wagons bogged, horses stumbled. Daenerys Dothraki cursed frozen mud. Unsullied wrapped spears in furs until they resembled walking hyrics. Yet morale burned bright. Minstrels composed verses before fires. Ballad of Ice and Dawn they called it. Its chorus the thunder of hooves and wings. On the next causeway Jon received dire raven. Maester Aemon gone to his gods, passing in sleep after hearing dragons cry across dark. Samsquill shook so the ink dripped like tears. Jon read the words aloud to Daenerys beneath willow branches heavy with icicles. She kissed the letter. He met his dragons before darkness, she said softly. He will guide us still, Jon replied. At Moat Cailin they turned east to skirt flooded marshes. The Greywater men guided punts across oil-black channels where dead reeds whispered of ghosts. In one fog-wreathed pool, the dragon-wriggled dove, surfacing with a writhing wyvern eel, thrice the length of a man, devouring it mid-air. Soldiers cheered, half in awe, half terror. The dragon's screech echoed to north horizon. Winterfell's cold towers rose like broken spears on day 43. Snow whirled ragged banners where Ramsay's men once flayed captives. Jon's heart hammered at sight, but he rode past, trusting Lady Meg's garrison to hold until spring. They pressed to last hearth, then to Queen's Crown. A pale full moon crowned a sky the color of hammered iron when they reached the ruined holdfast. Fires ringed the hill where Tormund's line held, now half its former length. Ice giants strode beyond, limbs shimmering like crystal in torch glare. Blue eyes searing night. Jon dismounted into drifting snow. Daenerys lowered herself from silver mare, cloak flaring crimson against white. The little dragon leapt into her arms. Ghost stalked forward, fur spiked in fury. Tormund limped from ditch, one horn braided into knotted hair. Blood-frozen flakes across beard. Thought you'd grown soft on plush chairs, Crow King? Your fleas missed me, Jon answered, embracing him. They feasted on finer meat. Tormund eyed Daenerys dragons wheeling overhead. Bigger wolves you bring now. Bigger storm, Jon said. They planned through night in a sodden tent, lit by guttering tallow. Melisandre cast runes in snow. Tyrion sketched trench lines. Grey Worm measured paces with calm precision. The strategy: unsullied shield wall to anchor crest, Northmen and free folk flanking, dragons to sweep giants, wildfire pots hurled by trebuchets at the ice spiders. At dawn they would strike to break encirclement and open path back to the wall. Yet before dawn, snow ceased and silence fell so complete it rang. Jon emerged to sky, clearing in burning stripes of pink. On the eastern ridge stood the Night King astride an undead mammoth, cloak of rime rippling. He raised a spear of ice toward Jon. Dunch. Dot. Jon mounted a shaggy northern courser. Daenerys climbed onto Drogon's neck, hair snapping silver in wind. "Do not die," she shouted above beating wings. After the wedding, he called back with grim smile. "No," she laughed. "During." Drogon leapt skyward, flames sizzling across frost. Battle broke like shattering glass. Unsullied advanced in perfect lockstep. Shields ringing under giant-flung boulders. Free folk screamed oaths to snow gods, axes biting brittle bone. Northern archers loosed flaming arrows, each ignition of oil bright as sunrise. Drogon spewed black fire that turned ice spiders to puddles of steam. Rhaegal dove to wrench whites apart. Nages clung to Daenerys' saddle, shrieking high answers to its elder kin. Jon fought on foot near the forward trench, long claw carving arcs of silver light. Fire runes etched by Sam into blades fuller burned faint gold, each time undead flesh parted. Tormund fought beside him until an ice giant's club sent the wildling spinning. Jon dragged him clear, feeling ribs grind under weight. Above, the Night King hurled spear of living ice at Drogon. Daenerys banked, but the tip sliced wing membrane, and the great beast shrieked, spiraling out of control toward frozen lake. Jon's breath stalled. At that instant, the Night King dismounted Mammoth and strode through lines that parted like reefs before Leviathan. Undead roiled behind him, a tidal bore of bone and blue flame. Long claw clashed with spear of frost, so cold steam burst between blades. Jon felt numbness creep into fingers even through glove. He pushed past fear, strikes guided by memory of Sirio's water dance, of Corin's brutal cuts, of Gior's unyielding lessons. Each meeting sparked wind-blown crystals of hoarfrost. Drogon crashed onto ice, pitching Daenerys clear. Wings raked air, but rent membrane hindered loft. The queen rolled to feet, drew a short arak gifted by Dario. Nages beat wings tiny against blizzard that rose as whites swarmed. Ghost appeared in flash of white, tearing undead throats with fevered growls to defend her. Jon saw none. His world was frost and blue fire. He drove Night King toward Charred Stump, where Queenscrown's tower once stood. The Utter's eyes gleamed twin auroras. It thrust spear. Jon parried, edged closer. Heat radiated from dragonsteel runes along Longclaw's fuller. Sam had said spells bound with dragonglass dust could quicken at need. Jon prayed need was now. Spear skimmed Jon's ribs, armor cracking with sound of ice breaking on rapids. Pain flared bright. He countered with low cut, meant for belly. But spear rotated, deflecting. Frost bloomed across steel, creeping up blade toward hilt. Jon gritted teeth, ripped sword free, slashed again. Sparks of red light danced where rune met rhyme. Frost retreated an inch. A roar split night. Drogon, wounded yet furious, had hauled himself into sky. Flames gushed blue-white hotter than forge. They engulfed whites nearest Daenerys, but Night King raised hand, flame curling harmless around him. Jon lunged in that moment, sinking dragonglass-bound steel through queer armor into pale flesh beneath. Cold exploded. Snow Devil's world. Spear shattered. The Utter's face cracked like river ice. Sapphire eyes dimmed. Around them whites froze mid-charge, pumping blue glow flickering out. Giants toppled. Spiders collapsed into shards. Silence roared louder than battle's din. Stillness lasted heartbeats. Then a susurrus of disbelief. Living men exhaled as if unclenching soul. Jon withdrew long claw. Frost on blade melted like tears. Daenerys limped toward him, hair matted, blood smeared across brow. She pressed gloved hand to his cheek. Her palm shivered hot. "Did we win?" she whispered. "For tonight." "Then where is Septon?" Her smile quavered. "I promised wedding in snow." He laughed, low and incredulous. Around them soldiers cheered brokenly. Grey Worm planted banner of three-headed wolf into frozen ground. Drogon limped closer, lowering enormous head until Nages crawled onto snout, chirping triumph. Tyrion appeared, cloak singed, hair dusted white. "I have parchment," he said between breaths. "And torch for heat." Melisandre's voice floated like embers, viewed beneath flame and frost. She guided them to mound where Heartsbane wood burned bright, but offered little warmth to vast darkness. Snow fell in glittering hush as Jon clasped Daenerys's hands. Grey Worm and Missandei stood witness. Tyrion recited vows drawn from both faith and Valyrian rite. Two souls forged in winter and tempered in flame. As they spoke, Naegi spread wings and shrieked. From sky above surged answer. Rhaegal and Drogon circling, silhouettes black against northern lights that shimmered sudden green, lighting battlefield with eerie dawn. When the vows were sealed by kiss, winds calmed. Men whooped ragged hosannas. Free folk banged shields. Unsullied tapped spear butts in measured rhythm. Even Maeg Mormont wiped eyes with rough sleeve. Tormund, ribs bound, hollered that wedding ale be stronger than giant's piss. Jon held Daenerys beneath falling snow. Smoke curling around them like tails of dark dragons. "Queen of snow," he murmured. "King of ash," she teased. "Together, dawn. Together." She echoed. "Voice sure?" Ghost howled once, long and low. The echo rolled down white hills, across haunted forest, and along crumbling wall now guarded by men who no longer fought alone. Beyond horizon new storm gathered, but core of it beat warm. Wolf heart, dragon fire, bound in ice-kissed rings of gold. They would face what came, Valyrian blades bright, direwolf teeth bared, dragon wings blotting sun. Yet not alone, never again alone, for frost and flame had woven single destiny, and under its banner the realm would march into whatever dawn awaited after longest night. Ka. Snow sifted across the ruined field through the long hours after dawn, burying the dead where they lay, and smothering the acrid tang of burned flesh. From the ridge Jon could see thin lines of men and horses, struggling through drifts to gather fallen comrades, torchlight flickering like embers blown by a capricious wind. The sky above Queenscrown was a tarnished pewter bowl, the sun no more than a blurred smudge behind layered clouds. Yet the air itself seemed brighter than any day since the first flakes began to fall that autumn. An invisible weight had lifted when the Night King shattered and blue fire died in his eyes. Even the wind felt changed. It whistled, but not the hollow, hungry keen that echoed in dreams. It hummed like a smith's bellows, feeding flames rather than dousing them. Daenerys stood near the broken gatehouse, wrapped in a patched bearskin cloak lady. Mage had insisted she wear, her silver hair loose on the fur. Nages clung beneath the cloak's collar, wings tucked, eyes half-lidded. Drogon and Rhaegal roosted farther up the slope, among toppled pines, their massive bodies steaming where blood and frost evaporated together. Grey Worm oversaw a cordon of Unsullied, who formed silent walls guiding maesters and healers, along lines of wounded. The smell of boiled pine pitch drifted on the breeze, as they cauterized what could not be stitched. Jon descended the ridge with Ghost at his side. The direwolf's flank was streaked pink where melted snow water washed through a long cut, but the wound no longer bled. Jon had bound it himself with strips torn from his old black cloak. The new cloak, wolf fur over crimson silk, he wore now, looked scarcely less ragged after hours of fighting. Longclaw rested in its sheath again, the runework along its fuller gone dull and dark. He could still feel the echo of heat in the hilt where frost had tried to crawl, but failed. as though the sword had inhaled flame and would not forget the shape of it. Tormund Giantsbane hobbled up, cradling his ribs. Snow was packed thick in his beard, streaked with blood that had frozen solid. "They say you wed the Dragon Queen in the middle of the storm," he growled, voice hoarse as gravel. "Couldn't wait for a barrel of mead and a bed?" "Mead might have drowned the vows," Jon said, clasping the wildling's arm. "And a bed would have been wasted. We were needed on the line again before the chant died." "Ay." Tormund wiped his mouth with the back of a huge hand. "But I expect a feast when we reach the wall. A proper one, with goat roasted till the fat drips and turns the fire wild. That queen of yours best eat like a true North woman, or my lads will think she's made of glass." "Then she'll match you bite for bite," Jon answered, thinking of the way she had picked sinew from a mastodon haunch last night, while laughing at Tyrion's sputtering horror. "But first we bury our dead." Tormund followed his gaze to the field. "No cairn high enough," he said, softer. "Still, we pile stones for as many as the ground will give, and the rest we burn. Let them rise on smoke instead of blue fire." Jon nodded. "Start with the watch and the free folk together. No separate pyres." "And would have been a time I'd spit at that," Tormund admitted. "But then a bastard prince handed me bread when every kneeler south of the wall wanted my head. And now I've seen him stab the heart of winter itself, so we'll build one great fire, Crow-King. It'll show all the shadows which side of the night they should fear." When Tormund trudged away barking orders, Jon crossed to the gatehouse. Daenerys glanced over her shoulder at his approach. Her smile formed slowly, as though she must remind unused muscles how to bend. He lifted the bearskin edge and slid an arm round her waist, feeling Nae'jis shift between them. A warm scale-armored bundle humming faintly. "How many?" she asked. "Sorrel reports 211 dead from our host. The free folk lost another 100, many to frost on the retreat from the gorge." He hesitated. "But the whites lie scattered like rotted brushwood. The giants too. We counted near 6,000 corpses that won't rise again." Her eyes closed. "I feared worse." A breath. "Grey Worm says the Unsullied lost fewer than on the day we took Meereen. They fought like winter statues." "Dow." "So did Rhaegal." He nodded toward the green-black dragon half hidden behind branches. "A spear grazed his wing, but the healers think flight will keep it supple. And Drogon's tear will mend," she added. "He already tests the air." She glanced between the dragons. "They listened to you when I fell. You called them in Valyrian, though your mouth was frozen." She touched his cheek. Her fingers smelled lightly of pitch and pine. "Where did you learn those words?" "Sam." He shrugged. "Reading late, by dim firelight. I never used them until tonight." "Menawanda." They answered as if they'd known your voice from the shell. She whispered. Jon looked out across the snow. Perhaps they knew the blood instead. She watched him, thoughtful. "Blood is truth, but truth can be cruel. Dragons followed my father even when he burned innocents. It is the rider who decides the path, not the wings." She laid Nae'jis gently into his arms. The hatchling blinked golden eyes, nipped his chin, and settled. "I never imagined." He trailed off, stroking the warm ridge of scales. "When I stood on the wall, dreaming south, I thought of bastard honors at most. Not of crowns. Not of dragons in my cloak. Dreams grow with the heart," she said. Then her tone steadied, queenly once more. "We must decide whether to push to Castle Black or rest here. The wall may stand free tonight, but its garrison is stretched thin. March at first light," Jon decided. "The wounded can ride sleds. Melisandre's flames say another smaller host roams near Eastwatch, directionless without the Night King. We finish them, restore order, then turn south before spring floods the neck. Naum? And after?" She tilted her head. "Your lords wish coronation and the Sept of Bel are rebuilt. Mine think the dragon pit's safer. The Northmen trust the godswood at Winterfell." "Let them send envoys," he replied. "When the wall is whole, I will stand where the first bricks were placed at Winterfell's foundations and swear oaths there. After that we ride to King's Landing together, hold court in the open air of Aegon's Hill for all to witness. No hidden vaults, no rumors left to twist." She considered, then nodded. "Aegon's Hill, your name and mine in the same wind." They shared silence broken only by distant shouts and the dull ring of spades. At last she asked, "Will the snows cease?" "Not for months," he said, "but they will lighten. And when they do, new green pushes through quicker than folk recall. The North forgives in its own hard way. I hope the realm learns that lesson." She touched the rope belt at his waist. "Because forgiveness is all that will keep it one." That evening Jon walked among tents pitched in hastily cleared drifts. Fires flickered under iron cauldrons, where onions, oats, and carved mammoth flank simmered into a thick gray stew. Men sat shoulder to shoulder regardless of sigil, sharing pine needle tea spiked with ale, whatever remained unspoiled on the supply wagons. Unsullied stood sentry, shields planted like headstones. Free folk lounged with bows across their knees. Dornish spearmen rolled dice with mountain clansmen, who once robbed their cousins on the Gold Road. The talk was muted, but not hollow. When Jon passed, voices fell respectful, then rose again in speculation about the next march, or the Queen's dragons, or the ghosts some had seen melt when dawn broke. Near the perimeter, he found Tyrion seated alone on a stump, a wineskin dangling from one hand, the other stroking the head of a shaggy northern hound. The imp's nose was crimson, eyes bright with exhaustion. He looked up. "I once told myself I'd never again freeze my noble stones off for any king's war. Yet, here I am, and worse, the puddle between my boots suggests the gods are returning the favor." "You could ride in Daenerys' warm cabin tomorrow," Jon said. "And deny the realm a dwarf popsicle as comic relief?" Tyrion smiled, but it trembled. "No, I think the sight of me shivering reminds your green boys that heroes come in all shapes, even quaking ones." Jon crouched. "How goes the counting?" "Better than expected, though numbers hide pain. Bread enough for 4 days if we ration, barley for another 5 after. We've 2 surgeons, both half drunk on sour wine to blunt what they saw in the gorge. But there are fresh arrows in crates looted from Ramsay's armory months ago, and the free folk carry silent grudges sharper than steel." He stared toward the dragons. "What truly matters is whether those wings stay strong. They frighten men more effectively than spears." Jon followed his gaze. Rhaegal was grooming torn membrane with careful claws while Drogon stretched the damaged wing, testing joints against wind. Under the stars that wing unfurled like a burnt sail patched by twilight. "They'll fly," Jon said. "Good. Because if they fail, the realm's faith will fray faster than Dornish silk at Littlefinger's brothel." Tyrion drained the wineskin, tossed it to the dog who sniffed and recoiled. "One more thought. Stannis will arrive with 3,000 Baratheon loyalists soon. They'll seek glory retaking Eastwatch. We must greet him carefully. He still believes the gods singled him sovereign. I'll meet him outside the gate," Jon promised. "And remind him the North doesn't bow, but shares the storm." Tyrion chuckled. "I'd pay to see that." As Jon stood to leave, the dwarf caught his sleeve. "Your Grace, I lost a brother today." At Jon's questioning look, Tyrion's eyes flickered. Sir Jaime fell breaking the last spider, crushed beneath its leg. They found his sword arm still clutching a torch that fried half the beast's face. "Brienne sits with the body." Jon's heart tightened. "He died guarding the realm," he said. "The songs will remember." "Songs be damned." Tyrion's voice cracked. "Remember him yourself." Jon squeezed his shoulder. "I will." Brienne knelt beside a shrouded form within a rough canvas lean-to. The torch at the entrance threw long black shadows. They danced over the golden lion embossed on Jaime Lannister's breastplate. She had wiped the steel clean, but could not scrub away the twin dents where carapace spikes had driven through. Snowflakes landed on her lashes. She did not blink them away. Jon hesitated. "I'm sorry," he said. She nodded without looking. He made me promise to protect the king. He did not say which king. Perhaps he meant you. He protected all. Jon stepped beside her. Jaime's features were calm, lips parted slightly as if about to argue one more point with his sister. The gold hand lay across his chest. He chose a final vow. She pulled a wolf skin from her shoulders and laid it atop him. He used to joke that if he died in the north your people would flay him for the gold. A stiff breath. Now I think he'd have liked becoming part of the snow. He will rest at Winterfell, Jon said. Down in the crypts among men who fought for honor. Brienne pressed fingertips to her eyes, then rose. In the torchlight she seemed forged of dull steel, unbreakable yet scarred. Then let him lie. I will ride with you to rebuild the wall. He believed in that fight. Jon touched her arm. He would have liked the view from atop it. The army moved as dawn spread pale rose across ragged clouds. Sledges carried the worst wounded. Others hobbled on makeshift crutches. Rhaegal took flight first, scouting ahead. Drogon followed, battered wing laboring but steady. The road wound northwest, through dense forest, heavy with fresh snow. Jon rode at the vanguard beside Daenerys, Brienne, Grey Worm, and Mage Mormont. Neji slithered beneath Jon's cloak, tail curled around his ribs, snout poking out to taste falling flakes. Ghost trotted ahead, breaking trail. By midday, Castle Black's towers emerged ghost-like through swirling drifts. The wall behind them loomed slate blue, its breach at the gatehouse still visible, though patched with crude timber braces. Black brothers in torn cloaks cheered weakly from ramparts when they spotted the dragons. Others made warding signs. Dolorous Ed flagged them in with a square of white cloth that had once been his undertunic. He met Jon inside the old practice yard, which now looked more graveyard than drill ground. Scattered cairns pocked the snow. Smoke curled from a single brazier. "Lord Commander," Eddie said, falling to one knee, though his leg quivered. "We've held as you ordered. No white set foot beyond the breach, after your firework." Jon dismounted, clasped Ed's elbow, and pulled him upright. "No more kneeling, old friend. The realm stands because you did not fall." Ed's eyes shone. "Then can the realm send a proper cook? We've boiled boot leather thrice since the raven flew." Jon managed a weary grin. "You'll have 3 queen's larders before sunset." He gestured to Daenerys approaching. "See that Queen Daenerys healers set up in the old stables. Unsullied will reinforce the watch rotations." Ed's gaze fixed on Neji's. "Is that smaller than the rest, isn't it?" "Still learning to grow," Jon said. "Wish the same could be said for my appetite." Ed shook his head. "I'll find the quartermaster. He'll faint, but then he'll find spoons." Nan. Within hours, Castle Black pulsed with urgent activity, reminiscent of the Battle of Castle Black years earlier, yet the mood was wildly different. Free folk loped up the switchback stair, carrying logs for new watchtowers. Unsullied drove stakes to anchor rebuild platforms. Maesters from Old Town and Meereen washed wounds side by side, while Melisandre circled the yard humming in Valyrian, lantern raised to bless each stretcher that passed. Stannis arrived from the King's Road with his main host at dusk, banners soaked, men hollow-eyed from forced march. He dismounted before Jon, jaw clenched so tight, the scar at his cheek pulsed. "You slew the creature," he said without preamble. "Together," Jon answered, including Daenerys with a glance. Drogon roared overhead as if seconding. Stannis' gaze flicked upward but held. "And in its wake you married." "That too." Jon straightened. "I ask your oath to the realm under our union." Stannis exhaled like a forge. "I have sworn to defend the realm, not adorn chairs of gold. If the realm chooses you, my oath stands." "It has chosen," Jon said quietly. "The council crowned me before we marched. Yet the crown means nothing if winter kills us all." He extended his hand. "Stand with us through spring. After, the banners may settle." The older man set gauntleted fingers into Jon's grip. "Through spring, then. But remember, the storm never forgets debts. Neither does Stannis Baratheon." That night Jon climbed the wall's inner stair to the topmost platform. He remembered trudging that stair as a boy of 14, lungs burning, heart hammering at the glory and terror of reaching the sky. Now the climb felt neither glorious nor terrifying, only necessary. Fresh timbers creaked beneath his boots where carpenters had shored the stair. Ice crystals glittered on every surface. Wind whipped his cloak like a living thing, and Neji's flared wings instinctively to cling tighter. Ghost stayed below. Years had taught the wolf to respect the drop. At the top, the world rolled away into darkness, punctured by 1,000 distant torches far south, along the King's Road. Northward, moonlight revealed the haunted forest blanketed white, every branch sagging under weight of recent storms. Jon breathed the icy air, felt lungs burn in the old familiar way, and turned to find Daenerys already there, hair lashing silver threads. "I heard each stair," she said. "The wind steps sang your approach." Wind never sang for me before. He crossed to the edge where ice bulwarks had been refrozen after wildfire's blast. "You once asked if the snows would cease. They will. But the wall remembers. We must rebuild its full height. Stone reinforcements, rune-etched anchors of dragon glass, torches that burn dragon flame oil. The maesters call it impossible in 1 summer. We'll finish in 2. Menarmo. We can spare masons from the Red Keep," she said, "and burn tunnels through the worst ice for reinforcement beams." He nodded, eyes on horizon. "When it's whole, I'll station 100 unsullied at Eastwatch, 100 at Shadow Tower, and garrisons of free folk scouts beyond. The Night's Watch will command still, but never alone. You give them hope," she murmured. "We give them," he corrected. He turned. "You have dreamt of freeing cities across the narrow sea. Now help me free winters for every generation to come." "Now." She stepped closer. Wind pushed hair across her cheeks. "When I left Dragonstone the first time, I thought only of one crown. But each mile showed another truth. Small folk crave safety before banners. Slaves crave bread before thrones, and kings—" She placed her gloved palm on his chest. "Kings crave peace, though they rarely taste it. If we secure the wall, perhaps Westeros tastes peace at last." He covered her hand with his. Frost sparkled on their interlaced fingers. Behind them Neji's chirped once, a sound like a newborn bird meeting sunrise. "Peace, then," he said. The weeks that followed tested every oath sworn in snow. Meltwater gushed beneath the bridge over the gorge, undermining scaffold braces. 2 giants' bodies released pockets of death rot that fouled the air for hours until fires consumed them. Rats bred fast on forgotten grain, spreading flux among wounded men. But the wall's breach shrank daily. Baratheon engineers hauled quarried limestone, setting courses within sheaths of newly refrozen ice, while Meereen's bricklayers taught Black Brothers how to cut sandstone blocks that locked like dragon scales. Free folk children carried baskets of dragonglass arrowheads to smiths, who bound them to shaggy hawthorn shafts. Melisandre lit forges with crimson tongues of unnatural heat. The fires hissed bright and hot long after fuel should have died. On the 12th day after victory, Samwell Tarly rode through the gate astride a fat Rouncy, his cloak patch worked with maester chains newly awarded. Gilly rode beside, baby Sam bound snug to her breast. Sam dismounted and sprinted awkwardly through drifts to crush Jon in a hug that rattled cracked ribs. His voice tumbled with excitement. He brought word that the Citadel's conclave had broken centuries of detachment to send 30 green links north, tasked with cataloging all knowledge on the others and preserving dragonglass forging lore. They even carried dust-dry parchments older than Valyria, describing fiery black oil found deep beneath the islands of the summer sea. Oil to burn hotter than coal, perhaps kindred to the substance wildlings named Nightblood. Sam boasted he had borrowed 2 jars. Jon laughed, relieved beyond words, and steered Sam straight to Daenerys, who greeted him like an old bannerman, inviting him to stand witness next time Neji's tested her fragile wings. Sam blushed crimson and nearly fainted. Tyrion promptly stuffed a flagon of Arbor gold into the new maester's hands and insisted on a toast. With the wall secured beyond immediate threat, Jon called council in the Lord Commander's old chambers. Once a cold cell of stone, now warmed by twin braziers. The long table seated Stannis, Tyrion, Sam, Grey Worm, Brienne, Davos, Mage, Tormund, and Maester Abros, representing the conclave. Daenerys sat at Jon's left, her hair now braided in the northern style. Two thick plaits crossing behind the crown, interwoven with red thread. Naegis perched on the mantle, tail flicking embers. Jon opened a parchment. Winterfell reports that Karstark scouts spotted a remnant of the undead host wandering near Skagos. They appear leaderless. Without a White Walker to guide, they may drift until sun rots sinew. However, the fear will linger. I propose we sail a task, force north of the wall, come thaw, Greyjoy longships, free folk guides, a dragon overhead. Stannis nodded. You have my ships. A clean shore means safer trade as well. Agreed, Daenerys said. Drogon and Rhaegal can scour coastal cliffs. Naegis will remain south. She still skins her wings if she glides too far. Then too. Second matter, Jon continued. The Night's Watch strength remains 900. Volunteers from the southern kingdoms increase daily, but we must revise the vows. The realm owes them more than cold and celibacy. He passed scrolls. A small stipend, right to wed if both parties also serve, and children fostered within castle walls. The Watch must grow families of its own, or fade. Grey Worm read aloud the Valyrian translation for unsullied officers. They murmured approval. Many considered joining once free. Davos tapped the table. Funding? Half from the crown, Jon said. Half tithed by each great house. The wall protects all pay. Meg Mormont slapped her palm. The North will pay double for the years we starved them. Cheers around the table. Tyrion sipped wine. Third matter, coronation. He raised brows. The lords south of the neck grow restless. They want spectacle and finality. Daenerys breathed out slow. Let it be Winterfell. Bran writes the gods' wood thrives even in snow. We stand before Hearttree and hold steel to palm. Blood will salt the roots, binding old magic to new covenant. After, we fly to King's Landing for a feast on Aegon's Hill witnessed by every tradesman who can stand. 2 ceremonies, one for North's heart, one for Realm's body. Memcee. All agreed save Stannis, who muttered about gods, but Davos elbowed him, and he waved dismissal. Preparations swept Castle Black. Tailors cut new banners. Deary wolves embracing dragons on a field of pale dawn. Carpenters shaped sleds for a royal train. Chests of wedding gifts from each house. Pearls from the arbor, spears of dawnwood from Starfall. A cracked but ancient dragon horn from Horn Hill said to summon fire across oceans. Jon thanked Sam for that last, promising it would rest in the Citadel vaults until proven harmless. On a clear morning, a fortnight after Queen's Crown, Rhaegal and Drogon crouched within the bailey, while teams lashed netted cargo to their harnesses, rope chests of parchment, sealed jars of maesters, strange oils, bundles of dragonglass spears for Winterfell's armory. Jon mounted Rhaegal behind Daenerys, Grey Worm and Missandei strapped into the second harness on Drogon. Tyrion declined flight. I trust wings, but they rarely trust me, and rode with the ground column. Ghost bounded alongside the lead wains. Naegis clung beneath Jon's cloak again, now large enough that her tail thumped his hip when she shifted. Dragons beat wings, rising above the wall in thunderous sheets of wind. Below, the army cheered. Jon glimpsed Ed on the rampart raising a mug, the first fresh ale cask tapped since before the siege. He saluted once, then leaned into flight as Rhaegal banked south. The world unfurled beneath. The King's Road channeled armies like blood vessels. The shivering sea glinted far east. He spotted lonely Molestown half buried, last year's massacre still scarring its lanes. Ghost looked up once, howled, then became a white dot fading behind. Daenerys shouted over wind, "First time on a dragon?" "First in full daylight," he called back. "Remember, the sky has no roads, but every road beneath leads home." He tightened his arms around her waist, feeling her laugh spark through ribs. Naegis squeaked a jealous chirp. "We're all home," he told the hatchling. Just choosing roofs. Winterfell rose from frozen hills 3 days later. Stout towers draped in frost, smoke curling from chimneys like gray ghosts. Rhaegal descended in slow spirals until talons crunched snow outside the broken gate, where Stannis once hanged the traitor, Arnulf Karstark. Stark guards emerged wide-eyed but unafraid. Lady Sansa strode forward in heavy cloak of weasel fur, auburn hair braided with weirwood berries. Beside her swayed Bran Stark in wicker throne borne by Meera Reed and another Crannogman. Arya stood on the steps, one hand resting on the hilt of needle, the other shading eyes to watch the dragons. Jon dismounted, boots sinking deep. A heartbeat, then he crossed the yard in 4 strides and swept Sansa into embrace. She stiffened, then melted with a sob. Arya reached them, hugging both, chain shirt clinking under wolf cloak. Bran lifted pale fingers. Jon knelt and pressed his brow to those fingers, feeling a pulse like heartwood beneath bark. Sansa's voice shook. I told them you'd come, but part of me feared the wall consumed you. The wall feeds, Jon said, but we feed it in return. We are whole now. He introduced Daenerys. The queen bowed low. Surprising Sansa. I have dreamed of Winterfell, Daenerys said. It breathes warmth through snow. Sansa studied her, eyes the color of a winter lake. If my brother trusts you, so will I. But I will watch. As wolves do, ace dragons expect, Daenerys replied. And they smiled, wary but not hostile. Feasting followed until torches burned low. Northern singers played sad air on harp. Dornish pipers added lilting counter-melodies. Mutton stew steamed beside bowls of fresh leeks grown in glasshouses Bran designed. Jon sat between his sisters, Daenerys on his right, Sam opposite telling wide-eyed Karstark boys tales of how cravens outsang heroes when given scrolls. Nages perched on a rafter devouring rats faster than the cats could hunt them. At midnight, Bran beckoned them to the godswood. Snow drifted through hush of weirwood limbs, leaves bleeding red patterns across white. The heart tree's face watched, eyes dark wells in moonlight. Bran spoke ancient words learned in raven dreams. He described a circle unbroken, of children of the forest whose songs still hummed in roots, of Andals who taught steel, of dragons who taught fear, of wolves who taught loyalty. He said a new season came when fear and loyalty must marry, or the circle would shatter. Jon pricked his palm with dragonglass, letting blood drop onto moss. Daenerys followed, crimson on her pale skin bright as sunrise. The blood seeped, steaming. Bran lifted a stone carved with both sigils intertwined and placed it beside the roots. The wind rose, rattling branches like applause. Far above, Rhaegal answered with throaty roar. Wolves in the kennels howled. The night accepted the vows. Inside the great hall, Tyrion supervised second feast. This one rowdy. Mead spilled, Dornish red flowed. Even unsullied attempted psalm, a halting chorus about smoke of freedom. Stannis remained sober, nursing mulled wine in corner, but his gaze never left the king and queen as they danced a slow northern reel taught by Arya, whose footwork mocked half the hall. When music quieted, Jon climbed the dais. Lords and ladies, he announced, winter will linger, but the wall stands new. Spring will find a dragon guarding sky and a wolf watching earth. We will rule not by fear but by oath. Bread to the hungry, justice to the wronged, and a sword of fire and ice to any who threaten the realm. Sansa raised her goblet. The king in snow and the queen of flame. The toast echoed until rafters shook. In the days that followed, maesters recorded wonders. Nages took first true flight across the long lake. Bran's ravens guided Rhaegal to hidden hot springs that thawed wing injuries. Unsullied and northern masons devised new kiln techniques, blending dragon flame and steam to cure stone in hours, not weeks. These kilns produced bricks black as basalt that never iced. They would pave the rebuilt King's Road from Winterfell to the Neck, ensuring food wagons rolled even in snow. Envoys arrived thick, Asha Greyjoy offering oaths in exchange for lordship over Pike under Crown law. Prince Aegon of Dorne pledging scions to foster in Winterfell to bind north and south, Lord Tarly bringing his famed Blackhorn bow as symbol of alliance. Gendry Baratheon rode up the white knife with newly forged warhammers, etched in gold. Gifts for the royal couple, though he blushed scarlet when Arya teased the hammer's heft. Not all tidings were joyous. Horn Hill reported the flux spreading beyond its villages. The Citadel dispatched healers with fresh potions derived from fire oil. Old Town's High Septon wrote long complaints about heathen rites in the Godswood. Tyrion filed them under later. Qarth offered tribute but insisted on exclusive silk trade. Daenerys refused, sending grey plague blankets instead. Through it all, Jon rose before dawn, walked battlements with Sansa discussing grain tithes, trained with Grey Worm in the yard where unsullied spears clacked with shield beats, and every evening read Maester Ambrose's reports beside Daenerys in the Solar Bran, had renovated into a high observatory. There they mapped stars with dragon-glass-tipped stylus, charting the long winter night's shift. Bran said the patterns altered subtly, as though sky itself breathed easier since the Night King melted. On the eve of departure to King's Landing, Jon stood again upon the wall, this time atop new scaffold's peak, higher than before. Below, the breach had vanished beneath shining veneer of black ice brick. Torches lined parapets like beads on prayer string. Edison Tollett joined him carrying 2 mugs of ale. "I thought you'd want one last look," Ed said. "Your wedding gift from hopeless brothers who can't carve wood to save a grain." Jon accepted the mug. "The gift is the wall hole. Nothing finer." But the ale helps." Ed looked around. "Hard to believe we once thought living beyond this line meant damnation. Now we have free folk sending flower seeds to plant in our midden. Says they'll bloom purple in the chill. Purple suits the black." Jon drank. "Tati. Keep hearths burning. When next winter comes, we be ready long before it wakes." Ed snorted. "Long as your queen doesn't mind us stealing her dragon's droppings for fertilizer. She'll forgive." Jon clapped his friend's shoulder. She forgave worse. The royal procession left Winterfell at midsummer's cusp, ground still white in shaded hollows, yet rivers running full. Dornish musicians played bride airs that startled ravens from branches. Tyrell gardeners scattered seeds along the road, so flowers might mark the king's passage next spring. Villages stood silent at first, awestruck. But soon children ran after Naja's shadow begging for a scale. Daenerys gave them copper tokens stamped with dragon wolf crest instead. They squealed, convinced of magic. At Moat Cailin, Howland Reed met them with 50 marsh banners. He bowed low before Daenerys, then gave Jon a reed whistle carved from the first dawn since the long night ended. He said it would summon marsh birds even in drought, to remind the king's songs remain when swords rust. Riverrun's levees overflowed from meltwater. Lord Edmure greeted them on makeshift raft, presenting a cask of trout smoked in juniper, though half the cask vanished before Tyrion finished praising its flavor. At Golden Grove, Lady Rowan offered barrels of apple cider aged 10 winters. At High Heart, the old dwarf woman with red eyes cackled and snarled but finally pressed a splinter of weirwood into Joan's palm, warning that peace grows only while children dream. At King's Landing, crowds flooded the fields outside the battered gates. The city walls, still blackened from wildfire, now bore bright banners of all 7 kingdoms stitched together. The dragon pit's half-ruined dome glimmered with fresh lead plating shaped by Valyrian fire. Inside, minstrels tuned harps and pipes for the grand feast. Jon and Daenerys entered on horseback side by side. Rhaegal and Drogon descended to roost upon the dome, their wingspan dwarfing its arch. Nages perched on the crown of the Iron Throne where it had been moved outside, onto Aegon's Hill, no longer hidden in the Red Keep's shadow, but standing under open sky for all eyes. The ceremony was simple. Tyrion read the decree of the Council of Lords. Maester Gorman of the Starry Sept anointed their brows with 7 oils. Melisandre lit a brazier whose flames curled in shapes of wolf and dragon. Jon placed a circlet of wrought ice silver, crowned by 3 rubies upon Daenerys' head, and she set a slender torque of black iron tipped with direwolf fangs upon his brow. When they turned to face the multitude, a hush swept like wind over grain. Then a roar erupted. The voices of tens of thousands lifted, blending cheers in 100 accents. Jon raised his hand for quiet. "People of Westeros," he said, voice carrying clear. "We have known night. Now we choose dawn. Hold each other by bread and salt, not blade. Stand watch with your neighbor, not over him. Let house and hearth shelter stranger as kin. And should winter roar again, we will meet it together. Wolf, dragon, stag, lion, rose, spear, kraken, falcon, all." He drove Longclaw point down into the earth beside the throne. "This sword belongs to the realm." "So do we." Daenerys stepped forward, eyes bright. "When I was a girl across the narrow sea, story spoke of Westeros as a land of songs and nobility. I found instead war and hunger. Yet even hunger cannot devour hope. You carried hope north to a wall of ice. Now bring it south to every alley, every field, every heart." She drew her arak and drove it into ground opposite Longclaw. 2 blades. 1 purpose. The crowd erupted again, louder than any raven's cry. Louder even than Drogon's answering roar. And Jon felt in that thunder the pulse Bran had spoken of. The heartbeat of a circle unbroken at last, if only for this breath of history. He looked at Daenerys. She looked at him. Above them, Neji spread fledgling wings. Storm clouds blew apart before summer wind, revealing a sky so deep and clear it seemed new-forged. For one fragile moment, the realm felt whole. And if the future held sorrows, they would meet them hand in hand, forged of fire and snow, crowned by dawn,